Hey, good to see you here tonight. Man, it's been a month since we've done this, and it's just been totally ridiculous. So great to see you all here right now. Man, there's a lot to talk about this evening, and I'm just chomping at the bit to get out of Colorado. The whole world is just going completely insane. And, we really need to be thinking about what's going on. We've been talking about stuff for a good while, but the stuff that we've been talking about is now presenting itself right in our face, and it's starting to get a little concerning. Even people that have, thought that the things that I'm talking about are complete batshit insane are starting to realize, actually, there's kind of something going on, isn't there? Yes, there is. There is kind of something going on. So we're going to look at a bunch of video clips, and other people are waking up. People are realizing that, hang on, there's something very strange, very, very, very strange that's going on. I want to play this clip of this video. I might get pinged for it by Facebook. We'll see what happens. Let's see if we can play this. I don't know if we can or not.
I knew it. You created a panic, and now everybody's begging for the vaccine.
No. Demanding it with all the entitlement of a first world country.
Yes. And now we have exactly what we want. Hundreds of millions of Americans lining up, offering us their arms, and letting us give them our creation.
I'm pretty sure when every vaccinated person starts dying, they'll trace it back to undetectable virus or not.
What we are doing is far bigger than death.
Wait, this virus is not deadly.
Tell me this. What have you done today to earn your place in this crowded world? Exactly. Everything I do is a cure for our current situation.
Wait, how's it a cure?
You're killing people.
I told you it does not kill. That was the amazing epiphany we had. We didn't have to kill to accomplish our goal.
Which is what?
We intend to stop human reproduction for 3 generations. The busy, endless global assembly line of babies will grind to a halt.
You're sterilizing people?
Uh-huh. In the first 5 years, we'll start to see major birth rate declines as teenagers vaccinated today hit their childbearing years.
You're controlling the future of human civilization.
Is that what they're calling it? It's a very nice euphemism for a species that is replicated like a contagion across the planet, killing all other species in its wake, except things that are cute, like puppies or koalas.
You hate people that much?
On the contrary, I love people.
Then how?
Why we're doing what our government or citizenry is too spoiled or self-indulgent to do. We are saving ourselves from ourselves.
Halting overpopulation.
Global warming, mass extinctions, food, water shortages. All these problems can be boiled down to one thing: overpopulation.
People don't like to think for themselves. It requires too much work.
And that's the problem with our society: complacency. It takes effort and resolve to lead a meaningful life.
Yeah, well, that's why hardly anyone does.
But I respect resolve. That's what it takes to lead a worthwhile life. That's why we thought Americans might actually like our plan. It requires
Some do,
no
some
resolve.
do.
We're actually helping them not do something. Right?
Don't worry, Americans. Oh, man, just keep your eyes glued to your screens, your lazy asses in your bean bags, and just chill out in your glazed sloth.
Right.
Some people say that they're always going to tell us what they're going to do beforehand. That's kind of what's going on there. This is what the Bible says. This is the Lord, Yeshua, in John. If the world hates you, be aware that it hated me first. If you belonged to the world would love you as its own. However, because you do not belong to the world, but I chose you out of the world, for this reason, the world hates you. And so the whole idea here is that we're supposed to be in the world, but not of it. And what is the world? It's a system. It's a system of control. The Matrix film, if you haven't seen that, or if you haven't seen it recently, it's probably a good time to go and watch it. Morpheus has an incredible amount of wisdom to give to Neo, and go listen to it. Just go watch it. And you start to see that these things are all through the movie. We live in a world that is completely controlled and dominated by these sickos. It has been for a long, long time. We think it's new because here we are. But 160 plus million people died at the hands of communism. That's not going on right now. Right? So people have gone through periods of immense evil over and over again. Entire groups of people have been genocided, have been destroyed. So this is why I'm so careful when it feels like we're in the last days. Well, it certainly does, especially when they want to bring in a vaccine certificate. And, now Google is talking about using your palm. You can use your palm to come up and scan something. It's interesting, isn't it? We have a video on the Mark of the Beast. This is a purchasing system, a transactional system that has been used throughout antiquity. It's not new, right? Obviously, there's going to be a more modern technological take on it. But this branding of humans has happened before. The first time humans were branded in the Bible is the very first time that the biblical text clarifies who Satan is, right? We've gone over this before. The two stories, one where Satan comes along and incites David to brand all of Israel, and then the exact same story in another book of the Bible where it says, and Yahweh, Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, brands Israel. You can't get away from it once you see it, that we've been fighting against the hidden adversary. Christians like to say, the greatest lie that the devil ever told was convincing people that he didn't exist, right? I mean, you don't have to go to too many sermons to hear a line like that. But that's not the greatest deception. The greatest deception was convincing Christians that Yahweh was God, that Satan was God, and we've made a big error there. So, I suggest that all the things we've been talking about over the last few years, you start to put into action. You reduce your size in the city. You start selling off everything you can that you're not going to need when you move. You go buy a much cheaper piece of real estate out in a rural area, and you plant a garden and you start to live off the land, and you become resilient. It's very important right now. You've got to become resilient. If you don't become resilient, then you're not going to survive. And whatever you do, don't get this ridiculous gene therapy, this mRNA therapy. It's not a thingamajig. It is gene therapy. And so, we want to try to, because they, as you can see, if you're watching the words on the screen, they transcribe all of this in real time. So we want to try not to use the catchy words that are going to get their attention. And also the text tells us that in the last days, there will be earthquakes in diverse places. And it says that the sun will be darkened and the moon will be darkened. And it describes them as being blood red. These are the kinds of things that happen during volcanic eruptions. So in Iceland, right now I can't pronounce it for the life of me, and nor could you. This volcano right now just started to erupt a few hours ago. This part of the planet, now I've been talking about when we've got some big hits here, it's like, oh, that's unusual. We don't often get earthquakes here. This part of the planet hasn't had real seismic activity for, they estimate, about 800 years. Now it is. 22,000 tremors in the last year or so. So we had this planetary alignment that we peaked about February 11 and 12. It's about a month ago. And what seems to have happened in that is not just, obviously, I forecasted perfectly the did I get my pronunciation of that right? I got my forecasting of those megaquakes absolutely unbelievably perfect, and I had that on Twitter 2.5 months prior, but I was talking about it a year prior. So now we're seeing this volcanic eruption occur in Iceland, and I think we're probably going to see a volcanic eruption in the big island of Hawaii as well. It seems, I mean, I don't pay a lot of attention to seismic activity right now. I'm just kind of, every so often, I've got apps that give me alerts. And it looks like Hawaii's going to pop. It looks like this volcano, which is completely unpronounceable, in Iceland is going to pop. Well, it is popping now. But we're seeing some activity that suggests that this planetary alignment somehow, I don't understand the science, and just looking at observation and trying to make sense of things, but it appears to have heated the core of the planet. We're seeing a lot of magma movement. We're seeing a lot of magma flow up towards the surface. We're seeing the volcano in Hawaii, which is the largest active volcano in the world. We're seeing the height of the volcano rise and swell as the chambers of this volcano begin to fill up. Not good at all. One really decent volcanic blast will really be quite devastating to us, and so to the whole planet. Now I'm planning to move to a rather cooler area than even here in Boulder, so there are considerations for food and things like that, but I've kind of got that mostly under control. What do we do? The main thing that I'm trying to do is to bring forth the gospel of the kingdom. And that is an understanding of, where we're all at. We've done a lot of videos. You can go find a lot of videos on the Anderson Discoveries website. You should go up here. You should click on where it says start here, read the text that's there, and go through that material. And the reason why is because although this stuff was written down about 1900 years ago, although it's easy to say the stuff in the Bible is obviously just nonsense, these things that were written down seem to be occurring in our day. And it used to be, if you'd look back in the past, that those kinds of things, you'd look at what was written in the text and you'd kind of twist it and manipulate it to fit with what was going on in the day. We don't need to do that anymore. It's happening word for word. And as more and more stuff happens, we get more and more clarity that the things that were written in these ancient texts, and of course, most people think of the Bible as one book. It's not one book. It's 66 different books. Some very ancient, some texts that are translations of texts that are probably 5,000 or 6,000 years old, like the Book of Job. Much older books that are about 3,500 years old, like Torah and a lot of the writings of the prophets. And then you got newer ones from around the 1st and 2nd century that are contained in the New Testament. And yet what I've been able to convincingly demonstrate is that when we look back into history, there's one big story that's playing out. It's a big story that we have missed. And at first, I encourage skepticism. I mean, skepticism is science. But it's important, though, to be open-minded enough to go and take a look at this material. Because a lot of people that have been very I've got people that are sworn atheists that had no interest in any of this, and now they're buying a Bible from me and they're reading it and they're watching all my videos. They're starting to see, wait a minute, you're making a lot of sense. It's easy to ridicule somebody, but what you've got to do instead of ridicule, if it's something important, if it's something that actually concerns humanity, our civilization in the future, right? Not just like, well, is the earth flat or not? It doesn't matter, flat earth, these people. But if it's something actually that's important, then you should seek to understand it instead of seeking to ridicule it. The world is a very, very strange place. We've got a lot of things in the world that don't make a whole lot of sense. Let's take a look at some of those here. I pulled up some of these examples. I know I had a friend here, John, who posted these earlier, and so I grabbed them. And these are the largest blocks of stone in the world. Now look at that thing for a moment. Just feast your eyes. Let me make that full screen. I have to toggle a button here. Give me a second. There we go. Look at that. Look at the people compared to the stone. Right? You may have seen some large stones from archaeological digs before, from some ancient civilizations that we've uncovered. but look at that, for Pete's sake. That is a cut stone block. And there's some questions here. Well, how did they do that? But I think how they did it is actually probably the least interesting question of all. I'm more interested in why. Why did they cut that stone like that? Why did they need a piece of stone that size? What did they intend to use it for? I mean, it's one thing to speculate on how they cut it. Okay, sure, okay. Let's say you can work out a way they cut it. Great, fantastic. Now, what was it used for? Why did they do this? Why did they go to this extraordinary effort to cut and begin to move? This stone is obviously moved out of its original location. What's it doing there? This is in Baalbek. Let's look at another one. I've got a couple here to look at. So here you can see the actual dimensions of one of these stones that's in situ, in place, right there. You got the big one on the top, and then you got the big one to the lower left of it. 19.6 meters. Right? You can basically multiply that by 3 to get close to approximation of feet. This is a huge block. What are they doing? Why did they do this? For what possible purpose? Why would, when you're going to build a house, you don't go, well, okay, well, we could get some stone and, we could go to a quarry and, you don't even do that. You just build a house. You've got to have a very good reason to want to extract stones of this size and, use them for a practical purpose, right? So this is in Baalbek, in Lebanon, and they're just enormous. I mean, you just can't get over the size of them. What on earth? I mean, just how does this make any sense? So before ridiculing me for some of my funny things that I talk about, start to become aware of the evidence that exists around the earth. You think humans cut these? Are you serious now? You think humans cut these stones out? Really? What possible purpose would a human have with a stone this frickin' size? Doesn't make any sense at all. Now you think, why would they be using stone? Why wouldn't they just, pour cement or something? Well, you're going to use whatever is available to you on the planet. You can't bring everything with you. You don't have infrastructure, right? And so you're going to use the natural resources that exist. But for Peter's sake, look at it. I mean, you cannot get over it. What is that? What, that's so extraordinary. It's just, it beggars belief. There was somebody here before us, much smarter than we are, much stronger, much bigger than we are. And they built things all around the planet. We continue to discover them. And right now there's a renaissance occurring in ancient civilizations, thanks to two technologies, LiDAR and ground penetrating radar, which are enabling us, we just found, you think of Machu Picchu and Teotihuacan in South America, and you've got these large sites that are absolutely enormous. And you've got this, the Valley of the Sun, the Valley of the Moon, and you've got all of these, what appear to be UFO landing sites. And these are huge mega structures. Yet, just about, 8, 10, 12 weeks ago, we found in South America the largest structures we've ever found. They dwarf everything else. What? And how did we find them? We found them thanks to LiDAR. Now, LiDAR is now on the latest iPhones and a few other Android phones as well. LiDAR sprays an array of laser beams, and the camera is watching where they all end up. They're all infrared and visible lasers, and it watches where they all bounce so that it can 3D mesh the everything it's looking at. And so what we now can do is we can fly over a forest with huge trees, and you can't see from a plane. You could fly a drone over and look down. It's like, yeah, but all I'm seeing is tree canopies, right? And even when you get down to ground level still, you walk around, you can't really tell much because you've got layers and layers of dirt and all this stuff built up. But now using these two technologies, we use LiDAR, we put it on a drone or on an aircraft, and we fly it over the top of the forest, and we mesh everything in 3D. And then we just use software to say, pull the forest away and show me the bare floor. And then you start to see all these geometric shapes. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a big rectangle here, and there's something over here, and there's a pyramid here and whatnot. And you realize there's stuff here. And then you go in with ground penetrating radar, and usually people just walk it. They hold a rod that is holding the transceivers, and they walk along, and they're blasting this radar into the ground, and we can go about 30 feet, 10 meters into the ground, and we map what's under our feet. So there's something that has gone on long before us, long before anything that the academia says happened. There were massive civilizations all around the planet. We just found, now in the ancient texts that we find in Sumeria, we read these stories about the first humans that were created, and they were created as black people, and they were created to mine gold mines in Africa. And just in the last 2 years, we have found the structures where they were living. We found their quarters. We've found the mines. But this stuff says that it happened 132,000 years ago, that they were mining gold and other minerals from the southern parts of Africa. What? Now, the Academy laughs at this. They'll mock and they'll ridicule. And they'll go, oh, that's complete nonsense. What kind of nonsense do you believe? Okay, so it's written in these really ancient texts, and then we go there and wow, it's actually still there. The remnants of it, lots of them, not just a few little scraps, is still there. Now, how do you explain that? You've got to start accepting the evidence. And what you're looking at here is freaking evidence. This is just enormous. Look at these, look at the size of the stones from the air. You just like, the evolutionist looks through, looks at biology and tries to understand how all these things could have worked. And to me, it appears to be evidence of incredibly intelligent design. But they're trying to tell a story. And their story is that it all just arose spontaneously over time. Give it enough time. Okay, well, the time problem is a problem in itself. There hasn't been enough time since the creation of the universe for what they speculate could have happened through evolution. That's a problem, right? 3.5 billion years here on the planet. That might seem like a long time, but for what they're trying to claim, it's not at all. I'm a sentient being talking to you over a computer. This is bouncing through the airwaves and all kinds of doing crazy things to finally get to your little phone. But somehow this all evolved. And even when you look at the sudden increase in the evolution of humankind, 100 years ago, we were just starting to get a grasp on the use of electricity. Now we've got silicon-based computers. In 100 years. You see, the progress of humanity has been so exponential, right? How then did this level of progress that we're at today not happen 1 million or 2 million or 100 million years ago? Why is it happening now? Why are we living in this time? You think, well, just we're lucky enough to be living in that time. Really? Think about it for a moment. If you look at the unbelievable progress we've made of late, from the start of the Industrial Revolution until now, it's like a blink of an eye, 150 years. Why didn't that 150-year period start a million years ago? We weren't here a million years ago. That's one answer, but these are things we just don't consider. I think about these things. You've got to ponder, like, why is this, if this sudden explosion occurred in the last 150 years, from the start of the Industrial Revolution until being able to launch satellites into space and all these kinds of things, why didn't that happen 1 million years ago? Why is this sudden, massive increase in ability only just occurred right now and in the blink of an eye? Funny. It's funny, the biblical text also tells us that in the last days knowledge shall increase, and that's exactly what we're seeing. It's very interesting, isn't it? But this is also knowledge that's increasing. We're becoming aware of what's really going on. And it also starts to inform us that, Jesus is not just some Christian fairy tale, but there's actually some real solid understanding behind it. So we should pay attention to all of these things and try to make sense of what's going on. Sonny says, there's no telling what's in the ocean. We've got incredible stuff that's in the ocean that we know of already. We have things in off the coast of Japan. We have what appears to be a quarry like this, where they've come and they've cut perfect pieces of stone. They've cut steps out. They've cut circular parts, and they've cut square parts. And there are some very strange people. I can't understand the mindset when you look at it. It's so obviously designed. That are trying to say, oh, it occurred naturally. Like the crystallization of the rock. Is that what you're trying to say? Because that doesn't work. Just look at it. So we've got this under the ocean. We've got pyramids that are under the oceans. There's something that's about to be released over the next few days. I've seen it. I haven't really taken a good look at it, but I'm sure more information will come out over the next week, where people have found some structures near the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. Well, that'll be interesting to take a look at. That'll certainly be interesting. There's people that have speculated that there are pyramids down near the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So I don't know why we're lagging a bit here. I can kind of see it on my end. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm not getting any drop frames here. But so we need to kind of pay more attention to what's really going on in the world, because the Bible talks about some very, very peculiar things that are going to happen. And whoops, sorry, I'm all over the place here. And even though they're written so incredibly long ago, they appear to be occurring right now. And that's weird. It's bizarre. And we should probably pay attention to it. All right, let's take a look at this woman. This woman is just fantastic. I love her so much.
Did you get your vaccine yet?
What?
Your vaccine.
I don't do that shit. Don't give me that shit about the vaccine.
Did you get your vaccine yet?
What?
Your vaccine.
I don't do that shit. Don't give me that shit about the vaccine.
It seems like it might have been a little bit staged, but but I just can't. You're gonna watch that again.
Did you get your vaccine yet?
What?
Your vaccine.
I don't do that shit. Don't give me that shit about the vaccine.
I love that. It's so funny. But this next one was most definitely not staged. And this is just awful. This is Joe Biden walking up the ramp to Air Force One. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. God. Here goes again from another. Man, oh man. I mean, hello. And like nobody coming to his aid. You're all just watching. Like, what are they there for? Poor man. I mean, really, what do you do about that? You know, They stole an election. There's no doubt about that. They stole an election. They know they did, and they're not going to get away with it in the end. And I think they know they're not going to get away with it in the end. And other nations just don't care. Other nations are not really keen on what happened at all, are they? And I thought I had another video here. I'll get it to you. Get it over here. There was a meeting in Alaska with China today, and they weren't really cool with everything. And here it is. Let me transfer it over here. They boy, this was such a kick in the ass. I don't know why it's not making much bigger headlines. It should be everything that all the mainstream media networks are talking about right now, but they're not. I'm sure it got a little mention, maybe not even that. But when you see this, say, are you kidding? Listen really carefully to the very final parts of
We'll also discuss
this word,
our
the
deep
words.
concerns with actions by China, including in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Taiwan, cyber attacks on the United States, economic coercion toward our allies. Each of these actions threaten the rules-based order that maintains global stability.
倒打一把是不行的。
Well, you can't blame this problem on somebody else.
I have to tell you, what I'm hearing is very different from what you described. I'm hearing deep satisfaction that the United States is back, that we're re-engaged with our allies and partners. I'm also hearing deep concern about some of the actions your government is taking.
我们把你们想得太好了，我们认为。
So, just some context here. The American guy that's talking is the new Secretary of State. The guy's just a moron. Just like, at least put a high IQ person in a position like that, who is, in some respects, the second most powerful person in the entire United States administration. You want to make sure you've got a person that's totally on top of things. Like Mike Pompeo did a fantastic job of that. I'm not a great fan of Mike Pompeo, but he was a high IQ individual. He had some posture, some poise. He knew who he was. He was, he was somebody that you understood. You're dealing with a man here, and you don't have a pushover. But listen to the translation of this guy's comments back to him.
你们会遵守基本的外交礼节。
Well, I think we thought too well of the United States. We thought that the U.S. side will follow the necessary diplomatic protocols.
所以我们刚才必须阐明我们的立场。
So for China, it was necessary that we make our position clear.
我现在讲一句，你们没有资格
You see the
在
body
中国的
language?
面前说你们从实力的地位出发同中国谈话。
So let me say here that in front of the Chinese side, the United States does not have the qualification to say that it wants to speak to China from a position of strength.
We'll also discuss.
That's amazing. Let me play that last bit just again.
Side, the United States does not have the qualification to say that it wants to speak to China from a position of strength.
We'll also discuss.
Whoops. So that's the United States does not have the qualification to speak to China from a position of strength. I mean, wow. What do you do about that? That is no small thing to say. With a full press call there to the United States Secretary of State who represents the president, right? He's the word of the president. Remember how we talk about Yeshua being the word. He's the messenger. He's the one that gets to speak on behalf of his father. The Secretary of State gets to speak on behalf of the president. So this is the word of the United States here. And the Chinese are saying, you don't have anything. You can't speak to us this way. Interesting times that we're living in, huh? So you have this Communist Chinese party that has probably funded Democrats across the country with fake money, We should play that clip too. And these people have this idea that the Chinese are supporting us. The Chinese aren't supporting you, you stupid morons. The Chinese are using you. And what comes out the other end of that, we need to see this one too. Get this one over. The Chinese are just going to take advantage of you. They're going to play you like a fiddle, and they have. And so Biden and Harris probably think, oh yeah, well, we've got some support with the Chinese, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, once they're in power, because that's what the Chinese wanted. They wanted these weaklings in power. And once they're in power and these people tried to come and, you know, put on their face and, or, you know, well, we can do this, and the Chinese is like, you have nothing. You just don't have anything. That's, I mean, this is how the Chinese operate, and these people are so naive. They're so foolish. These are the people that keep blaming Russia for everything, and they don't realize that they're being completely played. And so Putin actually said he would have a dialogue with Biden on the proviso that they have a live stream that's streamed to the whole world for everybody to see. I got a bunch of clips here I want to show you. Actually, I just realized we haven't done a show like this for so long. And it's like, hey, I've got all of this stuff I want to show you. But hopefully here I'll find the clip that I was actually wanting here. You know, if you Google Chinese counterfeit currency, Minnesota, Minneapolis, and see what comes up. We'll do it in a second, actually. We'll do it live here so you can see. And you'll begin to see why I have this hypothesis that the whole George Floyd thing was a murder, that Derek Chauvin did murder George Floyd, not because of race, but because they were probably both involved in a counterfeit money ring. And that's pretty serious. Here's the video I was actually wanting. So let me get these moved over. You know, the Chinese have been able to take out the United States for a long time. And, you know, when you're a foreigner living in any country, but here in the United States, and me being the foreigner, and you get the Americans, just like you'd get any nationality, you get a group of them that are like, hurrah, USA, USA, yeah, we'll kick their ass, man. They're going to come here. We'll take them on. The Chinese have been adding to their navy the same number of ships as the entire French navy every year for about the last 11 years. It was either last year or the year before where the Chinese navy overtook the size of the American navy. You know, the one thing they're good at is mass production. And that's what they did. That's what they did. Oh, we have some clips here from Trump too. Well, we must listen to what Trump has to say, right? Because he talked about vaccines disappointing a lot of people, including me. But you know, he's been promoting his whole vaccine warp speed nonsense for a long time. It's hard to know why. Maybe he thinks his real base won't get the vaccine and all the others will. I don't know. I hope you haven't gone and gotten that pretend thingamy-job, because it's only going to permanently hurt you. And the people that have gotten it and they're like, I was fine. What do you mean you were fine? When did you have it? Like a week ago. Dude, you've got the rest of your life to deal with the consequences of what you just did. It's a permanent alteration of your mRNA. It's a permanent alteration of your immune system. What you did is never going to go away. You permanently recoded the way your immune system works. You've done the most foolish thing you've ever done in your entire life. I mean, it's just complete and utter lunacy. Such a shame that people don't seem to get it, right? They think that we're all anti-vaxxers. It's not a, yeah, it's not a vaccine. So Let's see here. Let's see. We want to.
And our Supreme Court and our courts didn't have the courage to overturn elections that should have been overturned, because you're talking about decisive amounts, hundreds of thousands and even millions of votes.
So I agree with him there.
You add the fact that I was the one, and this administration was the one that came up with a vaccine, which is going to save the world, okay? It's going to save. We would be, I think, worse than 1917, where 50 to 100 million people died. The vaccine is such a big thing. When you add it all up, I think we'll do very well in 2 years, and I think we're going to do very well in 4 years.
You know, if the majority of people get it, it's just going to be the greatest health catastrophe the planet has ever experienced. And such, you know, the AstraZeneca vaccine has been pulled by 13 different countries in Europe. Now, after having some meetings, they've decided that they're going to start rolling it back out again. You know, nothing is going to stop these people.
Mr. President, I know that you received the vaccine. Mrs. Trump also got the vaccine. Would you recommend to our audience that they get the vaccine then?
I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it, and a lot of those people voted for me, frankly. But, you know, again, we have our freedoms, and we have to live by that, and I agree with that also. But
good luck. I don't care about the ridicule I receive. I don't care what silly names and things you want to say about me. You know, yeah, the proof will come. And it's such a shame. It really is such a shame that this is going to occur. All right, so this video made the rounds. Oh, no, actually, before we play this, there's something else I want to play. We want to go back to George Floyd. So let's look at this. Let's listen to this carefully and read the text on the screen.
This one was actually used in here at the tobacco shop.
Okay, by who?
Let me just confirm. Chris, come here for a second.
Awesome. Switch box me. I got you, bro.
So they both, one attempted to get rejected. One of them came through. I think the gentleman with the hat and dreads. Which person was successful at using it? The bigger one. So the bigger one was the successful one at using it.
The bigger guy?
Yep. The other one with the hat and dreads attempted and got rejected.
You still have that 20?
I do, and they had a lot more with them too, just so you know.
All right. Do you have all of them?
No, we only confiscated one.
Only confiscated the one?
Well, actually, he bought something with it too. So one of my employees, one employee caught it, and then the other person that was with him. So they both had counterfeits. The gentleman with the hat, and the big guy.
He just gave you the 20. What did he purchase with it?
Cigarettes.
Cigarettes? So do you have a envelope that I could borrow for a sec?
Borrow? Like you're going to give it back?
Yes, sir. $20 counterfeit. Just the one? Just the one. They said he had more on him, but this is the one that they used to do a transaction with.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to play that again with the audio off, because I want you to really read the text on the screen here. Oops. And we'll come back to that. So, is this what's going on? I think there's a very strong likelihood this is actually what's going on. So, George Floyd and Derek Chauvin worked at the very same club, right? They worked at the very, very same club together. And, you know, one of the tells in the media story was the owner of the club saying, well, we don't know. Hello, 1, 2, 3. No, we didn't lose sound. No, I muted it so you would read it. The owner of the club said that these two may not have met each other before. Oh, that's nonsense. I mean, you can't, it wasn't some, mega structure. It was just a club. It was a small club, but there's no way that that they did not know each other. That's complete nonsense. And so if you were bringing in counterfeit currency from the United States, how would you pass it off into circulation? Well, you'd want to use venues where you could pass those bills without a lot of scrutiny. One of those locations, of many others, would be a club where you've got lots of sensory deprivation that is going on. You've got loud thumping music. You've got lights flashing everywhere. You've got copious quantities of alcohol being consumed and other. You've got lots of sensory deprivation that is going on. You've got loud thumping music. You've got lights flashing everywhere. You've got copious quantities of alcohol being consumed and other. Thanks, Apple. We'll just switch over my Bluetooth devices on the fly without me doing anything. Why not? I mean, I'm sure that I really wanted you to do that, right? Can't believe Apple does some of the dumbest things. Really, it's just the way they handle Bluetooth and Wi-Fi is so pathetic. So you want to hand these bills off in places like a club, where when someone comes up and buys a drink and they get the change, it's dark, they're not looking, they're drunk, they're intoxicated, they've got all these drugs in their system, and they're not, the cute waitress is giving them that smile, and they're like, oh, hi. Oh, thank you, we'll be back. So that's the perfect place to do it. And you got these two people, and we've got this footage that just came out like less than a week ago that we just watched. And it's because it played the audio that we heard. It was my iPad that is my preview here, played back through my hi-fi system here. So it's the perfect location. You've got these two guys, and it looks like what happened here is that someone broke the rules and started to pass off that currency at a local shop. And the call went specifically through to this guy, Derek Chauvin, who worked at the club. And, look, I don't, I'm not persuaded by anything in the media. I don't, they tell their stories, and to me it's just fantasy. It's just a movie. It's the Truman Show. So I don't get taken in by it. And I'm watching them talk about, he had fentanyl in his system. He died of a fentanyl overdose. So we should clarify that, actually. So they say he had 3 times the fentanyl in his system to kill him, that it would have killed 3 people. That's nothing. This is how they use a lack of context and people's ignorance on drug use to promote a story. Having enough fentanyl in his system to kill 3 people is not going to kill him. A regular drug user, that's just a normal dose. There's nothing special about that. Now, if you or I took what he had in his system, it probably would have just killed us. But not him. And he's also a giant. He's a huge, hulking man. I don't know how much he weighed, but I mean, he would have been 280, 300 pounds. He's huge. He's 6'8", and he's a massive, massive man. Yeah. So, when they say that he died of a fentanyl overdose, I'm sorry, but no, he didn't. That's nonsense. He didn't have an overdose amount in his system. And the only people that are going to argue that he did are people that are either want the whole fentanyl thing to be a narrative, or just simply don't understand the context of the situation. For George Floyd to have that much fentanyl in his system is just typical drug use. It wasn't an overdose amount at all. So we can stop pretending that he died of a fentanyl overdose. No, he did not. That's nonsense. Now, what happens if we Google Chinese counterfeit Minnesota, Minneapolis? You think, come on, you think there's fake Chinese money coming in there? What are you talking about? Yeah. January 27, 2020, counterfeit bills seized at Minnesota border. The U.S. Customs Border and Protection Agency says the counterfeit money was found in and you see all of these articles, $900,000 in counterfeit seized by customs. There's a lot of fake Chinese currency that is coming in to Minnesota. So there's no doubt about this, that we're dealing with this big problem of all this money coming in. Let's play this video. Let's just play it in line.
On Saturday, federal officials announced the seizure of $900,000 in counterfeit cash at the International Falls point of entry. According to a release from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the bills were found in a rail container that originated in China. The container was sent to a customs exam station on December 14th, where the agents found 45 cartons of possible counterfeit currency in the form of $1 bills inside. Following the discovery, the U.S. Secret Service, which investigates financial fraud in addition to protecting the president and other officials, was contacted and subsequently determined the currency is counterfeit. The fake bills will be turned over to the agency, the release says. BP points out that the seizure has far greater implications than simply preventing the circulation of bogus cash. Stopping the flow of illicit goods is a priority trade issue for CBP, they said. The importation of counterfeit merchandise, including counterfeit currency, can damage the U.S. economy. I'm Chris.
So, it's not speculation on my part that fake Chinese currency was flowing into a Democrat-rich city. You know, the owner of the club is friends with the mayor of the city. I would say that, you know, the third district of the police, third precinct, are probably in on the whole thing. There's lots of corrupt cops. Not all cops are corrupt, of course. I'm not saying that. But there certainly is, you know, a lot of police have been arrested by their peers and charged for all kinds of fraudulent crimes, or crimes of fraud. And so we know here that Minnesota has a real problem with Chinese counterfeit money. A real problem. There's nearly $1 million in single bills. So how do you get rid of these bills? You put them through a nightclub where people are sensory deprived and they get the money and they start distributing it. I mean, remember the video that we saw, they said that there was quite a lot of money there. So let's go back. Hang on.
Let me confirm. Chris, come here for a second. So they both attempted to get rejected. One of them came through. I think the gentleman with the hat and dreads. Which person was successful?
Okay, I don't know why it's double speed. I didn't speed it up.
The bigger one. The bigger one was successful. The bigger guy? Yep, the other one with the hat and dreads attempted to get rejected. You saw that one? I do. And they had a lot more with them too, so. All right. You have all of them? No, we only confiscated one. Oh, confiscated one? Well, actually, he bought something with it too. So one of my employees. So one employee caught it, and the other person I listened to, they both had counterfeits. The gentleman with the hat and the big guy. He just gave you the 20. What did you purchase with it? Cigarettes. Sir, do you have an envelope that I can borrow for a second?
Listen to the cop's response.
Just one? Just one. You said you had more on, but this is the one that they used.
Just one?
Okay.
Just one? These cops are so familiar with counterfeit money. Just one? Not surprised at all. Just one? Just one? Just one? There is something going on here. There really is. There's something going on here. It's really incredible. But there's something going on here. I think my best version of events is that George Floyd was murdered because he was about to expose a counterfeit money laundering ring that was being run out of the same club that he and his murderer both worked at. Had nothing to do with race, had nothing to do with being a cop or not. These things were just coincidental. But he was the cop that was caught. And here we go. We've got this guy who's spending the money. And I'm sure they had rules, like you don't spend the money. You understand? You can't have any connection back to us. It's a local club, so people are always spending at the club. By the way, downstairs from the club, guess what business was operating? Right downstairs. A check cashing business. I mean, you just can't make this up. I actually have a photo of it. I don't know if I can find it here, but I probably can. But there was a check cashing business right downstairs underneath the club. And you got to be like, wait a minute, what? Are you serious? Like, man, all of these coincidences just start piling up. Just really, you know, like at what point do you start to realize, oh, wait, okay, that did sound kind of crazy to begin with, but man, there's a lot of evidence here. Just like this stuff up here, by the way, right? It sounds crazy at first. And then you realize, wait a minute, there's just all this evidence of this, and everything connects and it works out and it makes sense. And something really, really strange is going on. So let's bring this up here. So here is the rodeo club that he worked at. And you can see here on the sign, this is the club that they worked at. And then what's downstairs from here? you can't make this stuff up, right? So they're cashing people's checks and they're giving them fake money? Are they? Is that what they're doing? I mean, you only have to put one in every so often. You're not going to give them, like, you know, they're coming in to cash a $1,000 check. You're not going to give them $1,000 in fake currency. But you're gonna put one or two in there, maybe. Bunch of ones. How do you want that? Well, you just say, well, we've only got ones. Oh, really? Nobody checks ones for being fake. Those are the easiest. Like, why would they bring in $900,000 of singles, of $1 bills? Because no one checks them. No one checks $1 bills. They're the easiest to get rid of. You know, you go in and buy something for $10, you can pay with 10 singles. No one's going to check them. Right? So you've got this club with a check cashing place right downstairs. I mean, hello? Might there be something going on here? Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, we don't have, you know, evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, but we certainly do have a lot of evidence. And the evidence needs to be investigated. And the only way you're going to rule this in or out is by having somebody start to talk about this and get it out there. Somebody with a big social media following, somebody in government, somebody that can say, wait a minute, this might sound a little crazy, but there's a lot of dots that are connecting here and that everyone seems to have missed. And where are the investigative journalists? Why? Where are the, you know, where is Jack Posobiec on this? Why isn't he chasing this up? You know, there's so many, you know, really good investigative journalists out there, and none of them are touching it. Somebody needs to. I'm not saying this is right, but I am saying there is far too much evidence here to just ignore. There's far too many coincidences here that must be resolved, right? I'm sure you agree. It just gets a bit ridiculous, right? So, let's get on to this clip. For they will end you for investigate. Well, I'm investigating it, so let's see if they end me. But let's go now to Joe Biden, who was falsely elected. Now, this is the clip where his hand goes through the microphone. Well, okay, there and what? Hey, stop! What are you doing? Okay, so let's scroll back and forth a little bit here. So, the moment begins just here. Hello, can you update? All right. Now, what they're trying to allege here is that, no, his hands were just ahead of the microphones. Now, there are other shots of this, so it does seem peculiar that this would be green screened or anything like that. It does seem odd. But there's some real problems here. His hands are perfectly in focus. His whole body is perfectly in focus. The background doesn't have, you know, a strong blur to it. So the focal length here is quite long, right? They don't have a short focal length. They have a rather long focal length. Well, that's a problem because the microphones are not in focus. They should be. They should be. These dead cats, as we call them, they're covers for microphones so that they don't pick up wind noise. And if you were to work out the dimensions of that dead cat that's behind his hand, and looking at the perspective, that the width of that dead cat must be about 1.5 feet across. At least a foot across. Now, some of them do get fairly large, but not a foot across and not 1.5 feet across. But the bigger problem is, why is it out of focus when his arm, right where the microphone is also at the very exact identical focal length of the shot, why is the mic out of focus? Why is the dead cat out of focus? But his arm, his suit, his elbow is all perfectly in focus, razor sharp. So there's more going on here than the people that have tried to debunk this have admitted to. They're having to ignore these things. Additionally, you can kind of see the outline around his hand. And actually, it's even worse at times. When we get up here, it's such a strongly defined line around his hands. And here, now you could kind of put this down to some MPEG compression. MPEG is very, very bad at the way it compresses moving items. But, you know, his hand is starting to melt right into the microphone here. And again, why are these microphones not in focus? They should be really sharp, but they're not. Because the microphones are closer to the camera, much, much closer than Joe Biden is. So, you know, they're zoomed in somewhat. They're using these boom microphones on a long boom. So this camera, the cameraman looks a lot closer to Biden than he really is. He's at least three of these distances back from where Joe Biden is. They've zoomed in a little bit. So this really presents a bigger problem. The more you zoom in, the shallower the focal length is going to get. These dead cats should be in focus, but they're not. And the fact that you can see there's something weird going on, if this was just a normal shot with his hands going over the microphone, we see that, it wouldn't look so weird. It just looks flippin' weird, and it looks weird for a reason. So let me get that off the screen.
Not at the moment.
Right? It doesn't look natural. There's something, the eye catches it. The eye goes, wait a minute, there's something, that's not what, go back, what happened there? And you just wouldn't have that reaction if this was just a normal shot. So I don't know what's going on here. I really don't know what's going on here. It doesn't make any sense to say, well, what do you think that The Hill, I think this footage came from The Hill magazine, The Hill website. It doesn't make any sense that they were putting in, you know, some kind of green screen effect and, you know, pasting in these microphones. It just doesn't, it's very strange. It doesn't make sense they would do that. And we do have other angles of this as well, but some of the other angles also look very strange. So I don't know. It is kind of peculiar. I don't know. I'm not saying that they used a chroma key here and that he's not really there or anything like that, but there certainly is enough anomalies in the shot that something odd happened here. I think something happened in post. Somebody has altered the image somewhat. Otherwise, we just wouldn't be talking about this. We just would not be talking about it. And here, it's really clear. You look at his hand compared to the size of the dead cat. I mean, he'd just be absolutely huge. Like, I mean, maybe they are, but this dead cat would have to be this round. This round. Look at it compared to the size of his hand. It's got to be this round. Right? Which means the length of it is just absolutely enormous. Now, I've never seen anybody with a boom microphone that there's no need for it. Look at the others. They're half the size. No. Something is going on. Something is going on. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. All right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, you know, don't be gaslit by these people that are going to, oh, no, you're just a conspiracy theorist. There's nothing going on. Here's the explanation. Yeah, God, I mean, think a little bit, for Pete's sake. Definitely, you know, most of these things that come up are just nonsense, but sometimes there's really something going on, and there really is something going on here. So this guy had a reaction to some people at a restaurant. He was visiting the restaurant, and I guess the waitresses wanted him to wear a mask. This is pure gold.
This is the truth that we're living in. And Christ represents the truth, the light. We're going back to the light right now. And right now, darkness is walking the earth. And that is part of the darkness. It's an evil agenda to shut people's consciousness down and to enslave them. It's nothing else.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that. But
Yeah.
we can still serve together.
What do you disagree about that?
Oh, we just, we're asked to wear masks, and we.
By who?
By our, our prophet. And
For what?
To help just keep everyone safe. Because
Safe from what?
COVID.
Wait.
What
Did
is
she
COVID?
say by our prophet?
What kind of disease?
Are these Mormons?
Similar to the cold or the...
Disagree on that. But
Yeah.
we can still serve together.
What do you disagree about that?
Oh, we just, we're asked to wear masks, and we.
By who?
By our, our prophet. And
For what?
To help just.
They're Mormons.
Because
Safe from what?
COVID.
What is COVID? What kind of disease?
Virus.
Similar to the cold or the influenza? How deadly is it? How deadly is it?
I don't want to argue with you, sir.
There's no argument. I'm asking an intelligent person, are you educated? Are you a human? You have a responsibility to use the intelligence God gave you. And you're not thinking right now.
Oh, they just
You're
follow the
following
prophet. That's
orders.
right.
You're not thinking for yourself. You're not in touch with your soul. Because if you were, you would take that bullshit off and you would breathe freely, which is the #1 form of nutrition. And if you don't have proper oxygen, you can't have cognitive function. And if you can't think right, you're easily pushed around and controlled and manipulated. As governments and religions have done, as I gave the example before of the communists and the people that have walked before us, like Mao Zedong, like Stalin, like Adolf Hitler. That happens, right? It happens, right? People get murdered and killed, genocide, correct?
Yeah.
This is the first step. If you don't have a mask, you're just like the Jews in Nazi Germany, with the star on their arm.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I'm done with it, right? Because I came from California. They're double masking now. They're fucking with people's heads. And I don't like this. And this is the United States of America. And this is my free speech.
Poor Mormon girls. I didn't pick that up when I first watched this. Wow. There's not many denominations or sects or cults out there that talk about following the prophet. The Mormons talk about following the prophet. Now, I mean, a Muslim might say that's in a different context, and they definitely were not Muslims. So, that was quite interesting. But that's the problem. Like, it's not just, it's easy to pick on Mormons, but the whole world is completely engrossed in this cult. And my phone just turned off and rebooted. How strange. And so, we don't want to pick on them too hard. And they did get a couple of things right. They understood that Yeshua and Yahweh are brothers. Satan and Yeshua are brothers. They didn't realize Yahweh is Satan. They think Yahweh is Yeshua. So that's interesting. But everybody's sucked into this major cult, right? It's not just them. So now there's some good news. Actually, before we go on to that, we've talked a lot about the temple being built in Israel, right? We've talked about, we don't know if this really is the last days of the last days, but one way that we will know is when Israel rebuilds their now third temple, right? The previous one was destroyed in 70 AD. They built Jupiter's temple over the top of it. Fancy that. Jupiter being Yahweh. And so why is that? There's a question about the temple that some people ask is like, why did what's the deal with the temple? The temple is their father's temple, Yahweh's father's temple, Yeshua's father's temple. And that's why Yahweh in the end will desecrate the temple when we see the abomination of desolation standing in the most holy place. So this is a piece put out by the Temple Institute in Israel. And you probably, can work out, the reason that I'm playing it. Here's a guy reading Torah, and they're all running over here to see something. And what are they going over there to see? They're going over to see the newly rebuilt temple. Everybody's excited to see it. It's finally here. The temple. Now, I told you it's a very basic structure. As you can see, it is. And when are they going to build the temple? I don't know. I don't have a clue. But probably pretty soon. They have all the implements they're going to use inside the temple already manufactured. They're already made. I think the entire structure has probably actually already been prefabricated off-site. They're waiting on breeding a red cow, red heifer, that is completely flawless. It can't have any black hairs. It can't have any white hairs, no gray hairs. It has to be pure, solid red. The entire thing. And I think that once they have a red heifer, and they do have right now, they have 2 possible red heifers. I mean, just blows your mind. The Temple Institute have been breeding these red heifers for a long time, and they have 2 possible candidates right now. Now, right now, they have some white hairs on them, and they literally are going over these heifers with a fine-tooth comb, literally, because it can't have a single blemish, and they can't pluck the hairs out. If they fall out on their own, fine. But they have to be able to sacrifice a pure red heifer. So when they rebuild this temple in Jerusalem, and they have an opening ceremony, and then they will cleanse the temple, and part of that cleansing process will be the sacrifice of the red heifer. Everyone has different views on eschatology, end times, and things that are going to happen, but I am pretty confident that that is day 1 of the 7-year period of tribulation that is talked about in the biblical text. That would mean that if, let's say this is going to happen in a few years, next year, maybe this year, totally could be this year. I would say what's very possible here is that this administration will serve out their 4 years. It'll be such a terrible, terrible 4 years. Donald Trump will get reelected, and one of his campaign promises will be, we're going to push for the Jews to be able to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. That would be a reasonable expectation of a chain of events. So they build a temple about 4 years from now, and by then they most definitely will have the entire thing completely built off-site. It's very simple. It's very basic blocks, bricks. But that would be a very reasonable kind of thing to assume. Just 4 years of just the worst possible administration for this country that absolutely re-elected Donald Trump in a major victorious landslide election where it absolutely nailed, any doubt of whether the election was stolen from him this time around, which it most definitely was. But who knows? But if they rebuild this temple and they start sacrifices, then yes, we're living in the very last of the last days. And people have got different opinions on these things, and I had different opinions too when I was a Christian. But when I discovered all these other things that we talk about up here, and we started connecting all of these dots, then things take on a much, much different perspective. Like, who is this mysterious figure that Christians have never been able to work out? Who is this abomination of desolation? This ugly person that causes destruction, standing in the most holy place. The most holy place can only be the temple, right? So that will be Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh himself, Yahweh. And if you're new and you're like, wait, what are you talking? You're saying Yahweh is Satan? The Bible says Yahweh is Satan. We've missed it. You go through my studies, you go here and watch the video up here, 2 gardens and a snake, and who is Yahweh. Those 2 videos back to back you won't have any doubt anymore. I know in the beginning you'll be cussing me and saying that's complete heretical nonsense. That's all right. Just go watch the videos and I take you through the text and you'll see we've been lied to, right? Christianity was created by the very same world system that is controlling all of us right now. It's not the Lord's faith at all. So we'll see what happens here. We'll see if they rebuild this temple. If they do, then yeah, there's no doubt anymore. It will be the last days. That is absolutely for sure. All right. Well, I've had a lot of fun tonight. It's so good to be back with you all. Now, we have so many financial supporters. Oh, we did anyway. I love you all so much, but when I couldn't put everyone's names on the ticker, our financial support just kind of dropped off because, people want to be recognized. They don't want to be taken for granted. And, I love to recognize people. So there's no question about, do I feel compelled to recognize people for financially supporting what I'm doing? I love to make sure you are absolutely recognized. And if your name for any reason, I just realized before the break, someone who had purchased something from my wish list is not listed here. Because I have no list of that. And so now I have a spreadsheet. I'm not an office type person. I'm not a very organized person like that. So I'm creating spreadsheets maybe for the first time in my whole life. Seriously. I'm just not a spreadsheet kind of person, but I have to keep track of everybody's gifts because I want to make sure I recognize everybody. So when you get over here to AndersonDiscoveries.com, in the middle of our videos here, we have the new supporters honor roll. And if you've given anything this calendar year, or anything in the last 90 days will be listed here. And so thank you so very, very much. I really appreciate it. And I said we're going to change the show. And as you can see, the show has changed. And we're not going to do the simulcast with Tucker Carlson because we're eventually going to get in trouble for doing that. And I just got a 30-day ban. So we don't want to repeat that, right? And we're looking at getting our own app so that we can stream over our own app instead of having to worry about the socials altogether. And we're definitely going to do that, but it's just a matter of when. So I do appreciate all of you that have financially supported me so very much. Your names are here. And don't feel like, some people, if your name's not there for some reason, I don't know why it wouldn't be, but, and you're like, well, my name's not there. Oh, I don't want to contact the guy and tell him. No, please do. Really important to me. All right. Really, really important. So make sure you do that. Okay. I know it might be a little embarrassing, but just do it anyway, because I want to make sure your name is here. And there's some people that have asked to be anonymous, and so their names are not here. And if you want your name to be anonymous, that's fine too. I don't have your last name listed here, just your last initial. So you will all be here from now on. Oh, you can't even see what I'm talking about. I'm so sorry. Look at that. So you're all here, and so I appreciate that all so very, very much. And there you are on the screen. I was hoping to have that there for several minutes while I was just talking about it. But so we will put this up every show and make sure you get the credit that you're deserved, because you're literally, funding this entire operation and ensuring that I don't have to go out and get a job, which would take all that time away from me being able to do what I need to do here. So you're so appreciated, and I really, really mean that. So thank you. Thank you very much. I see, almost everybody here is a financial supporter, and I just, your names are up here, and I love that to pieces. So thank you. We will continue to do this. And, we're just waiting on Starlink to ship our satellite package. And then I'm leaving the area. I'm leaving the state for good. I mean, I'm sure I'll come back and visit at times. It's a beautiful area, but I'm going to go and live in a different area of the country altogether, and then we're going to go to South Dakota in a few months and have a conference. So that'll be fun. So we'll all go up to South Dakota, and there we're going to have. And obviously, why would we pick South Dakota for the conference? Because they don't have this whole mask BS, and so we don't want people to be feeling like they have to wear a mask. It'll be a mask-free zone. So if you think you need to wear a mask, don't come, because you're not going to be very comfortable there, because no one else is going to be wearing a mask. So just waiting for the Starlink package to be shipped, and we'll get a tracking number. It's probably like 2 or 3 day delivery, and I will meet that package there. I will drive across the country and meet it. And that's where I'm going to be living at least all the way through the fall. And that's really exciting. And I got friends that have hooked me up with that, and I don't want to name you for obvious reasons, and because we want to keep that location as private as possible. But thank you very, very much. I appreciate you more than you know. And all right, so I will see you on Sunday night. There's no show tomorrow night, but I'll see you Sunday night, 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, and we're going to go through the Tree of Life and the Handbags of the Gods, this incredible archaeological mystery that I solved before I knew there was a mystery to solve. And that's going to be really fascinating. Whether you're a Christian, you're going to hear things you've never heard before that are in your Bible, and you're going to be a little upset that no one's ever told you this stuff before. But you could go and watch Two Gardens and a Snake. So you go up here, and there's our Q&A. The latest video will always be at the top here. But you see here, these 2 videos here, or in fact, these 3 videos, watch these sequentially. 2 Gardens and a Snake, what really happened in the Garden of Eden, according to your Bible, not your pastor. Who is Yahweh, not who you've been told. And breaking news about the kingdom. What is the kingdom? And you go through these 3 videos. They're probably the best 3 videos to go through right now that'll bring you up to speed on everything that is going on. All right. Have I forgotten anything? I don't think so. Tiaki and I love you to pieces, and we will see you Sunday evening. All right. You have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your evening and weekend, and we will catch you Sunday night. Take care. Bye-bye.